Another year of big movie releases went by, and as usual, there were many hits, as well as flops that did not excite audiences for whatever reason. The nice thing about 2018 is that all the major studios had enormous successes they can be proud of, that helped boost up their slates when other movies did not work quite as well. As usual, I'll be starting with the major Hollywood studio with the highest market share, and then move down the list. Not surprisingly, the big winner at the box office was yet again Disney, primarily helped by a whole bunch of superheroes. Avengers: Infinity War ended up the highest grossing film at the worldwide box office, topping $2 billion and showing the continuing drawing power of Marvel's mightiest heroes. However, I found myself more impressed with Black Panther's box office, which was far beyond even the most optimistic of expectations. Disney will definitely be saying Wakanda forever for a very long time. Then there was Incredibles 2, which showed how many people were awaiting the return of Pixar's superhero family, by far outgrossing its predecessor. Ant-Man and the Wasp grosses were also impressive, bringing in a bigger audience than the first film. Ralph Breaks the Internet, meanwhile, looks to do about the same business as Wreck-It Ralph. No major increase or decrease, but it shows what a consistently successful brand this property is, no matter how many Disney princesses they throw in there. Christopher Robin did okay, but Winnie the Pooh has often been more successful as a merchandising empire. Mary Poppins Returns is still chugging along and is not close to finishing its run, although it has not quite become the breakout hit I or Disney thought it would be. But I think the movie will do alright in the end. While Disney did have these enormous successes, even the all-powerful mouse was not immune to flops. The fantastical visuals of A Wrinkle in Time and The Nutcracker in the Four Realms just were not enough to attract people to the theater. And then there's the mystery of Solo: A Star Wars Story. What happened? The last 3 Star Wars movies easily crossed $1 billion, and this did not even hit 400 million. Whatever the reason, it shows that even the Star Wars name is not always a guaranteed moneymaker. While Disney was heavily focused on big-budget blockbusters, Warner Brothers went for more variety in their 2018 schedule and managed to find a lot of hits in a number of genres. Yet even WB capitalized on the popularity of superheroes, as Aquaman has become easily the biggest hit in the current DC universe, and certainly the studio's most successful film of the year. Meanwhile, A Star is Born shows how audiences continue to love this tried-and-true story, whether it's Judy Garland playing the star, or one of the most popular pop singers on the planet. In terms of return on investment, The Nun is definitely one of the studio's most profitable films. Who could have predicted The Conjuring would lead to one of the most successful cinematic universes? People also showed how much they love sharks eating things, as proven by how well The Meg performed, and Ready Player One became another film for Mr. Spielberg to add to his long list of box office success stories. One barrier-breaking hit was Crazy Rich Asians, showing Hollywood what happens when you make films about other races too. And Ocean's 8 also found success with its ensemble of well-liked actresses. Clint Eastwood's The Mule should find its way into profitability, as it's been performing decently over the Christmas and New Year's period. Thank your grandparents. Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald had a bit of a drop-off from the previous entry in J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World series, but nonetheless still found an eager audience of Potterheads. Rampage did not exactly break the dreaded video game movie curse, but it did alright in the end, while Tomb Raider proved to be more of an international play, although Lara Croft returning to theaters doesn't seem likely. Warner Brothers also found decent success with some of their comedies. Thanks to reasonably managed budgets, Smallfoot, Teen Titans Go to the Movies, Game Night, and Tag had solid theatrical runs, and should have a good shelf life afterwards, although Life of the Party less so. As for Paddington 2, WB only handled the release in North America, where it never took off for some reason. However, not to worry, the rest of the world were happy to partake in his marmalade sandwiches. The studio's few real box office duds were a pair of macho movies from earlier in the year. The 15-17 to Paris and 12 Strong was just sort of came and went. Otherwise, it was a fantastic year for the home of Bugs Bunny and Batman. Universal had a great year too, led by the roaring billion-dollar dinosaurs of Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Hey, People love their dinos. The Grinch continued Illumination's impressive streak of animated hits, while 50 Shades Freed still found many folks willing to enter that infamous Red Room one last time. Housewives also came out in full force for Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, so don't be surprised if more famous actors return to perform even more ABBA karaoke in 10 years. One of Universal's most fruitful collaborators has been Blumhouse, which has given them a steady stream of low-budget and extremely profitable horror films. The massive success of Halloween guaranteed Michael Myers will continue to take part in his favorite holiday, and there are probably more doors to open after Insidious: The Last Key. The First Purge and Truth or Dare also brought solid returns on their mere budgets. Universal scored another low-budget success with the thriller Breaking In, and their comedies did nicely too. Blockers and Night School performed decently, The House of a Clock in Its Walls was a sleeper family favorite, and most importantly, Johnny English struck again. Seriously, how do these movies keep pulling in the same numbers every time? That Johnny English fan base is certainly a loyal bunch. Green Book has not quite turned a profit yet, but it's been having impressive staying power, and its Golden Globe wins and likely Oscar nominations should keep it going for a few more months. Skyscraper was not the worldwide sensation Universal, Legendary, and Dwayne Johnson hoped for, but have found enough interested patrons overseas. A Legendary production that was not saved by international viewers? Pacific Rim Uprising. So don't expect a third movie anytime soon. One film that unfortunately did not have many takers was First Man, despite the talent involved. Universal's Christmas was also not particularly merry, as both Mortal Engines and Welcome to Morrowind ended up being rather ambitious and costly misfires. Now, for the past few years, Sony Pictures has been in the 5th spot in market share, but things went up for them in 2018 as the studio hopped up to number 4 for the year. Their biggest hit was Venom, which had some doubters prior to the release, as who would see a Venom movie without Spider-Man? Apparently a lot of people wanted to see a Venom movie without Spider-Man. Sony's animation division was also a big help this year, led by Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation, which became their highest-grossing animated film to date. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has also done really well over the holidays and into January, sure to lead to more dimension-hopping Spider-People. Peter Rabbit was a successful early-year hit for Sony, especially in his native Great Britain, where it stayed number 1 for 4 consecutive weeks. In a curious case, The Equalizer 2 pulled in the exact same audience as the first film, which proves the consistent drawing power of Denzel Washington. Goosebumps 2 saw less attendance than the first film, but Sony seemed to take that into account with a reduced budget, so it did okay. Speaking of reduced budgets, Searching ended up being a fantastic low-budget hit after they bought it at Sundance. The horror film Slender Man and the Possession of Hannah Grace, and the religious film Paul Apostle of Christ also made a decent amount of change thanks to how little they cost to produce. Sicario was not quite the franchise material they hoped for though, as the sequel pulled in some middling and unimpressive numbers. Not quite a flop, but not a runaway success either. In regards to Sony's actual flops, The Girl in the Spider's Web will probably be the last time we see Elizabeth Salander on the big screen, and the public word of mouth on Holmes and Watson is destroying that movie faster than you can say elementary, my dear Watson. The Dog Story Alpha did not muster much excitement after many delays, while Superfly and Proud Mary were largely ignored. White Boy Rick also not turned into the Oscar player Sony might have hoped for, and The Frontrunner quietly came and went from theaters. 20th Century Fox had a quiet year as they awaited the long approval process of them being absorbed into Disney, and that slate was mostly fueled by 2 enormous behemoths. Not surprising was the continued success of Deadpool, so Ryan Reynolds' foul-mouthed superhero should be safe under the mouse. Bohemian Rhapsody also performed incredible numbers on the world stage, showing how much the music of Queen and Freddie Mercury still resonates with plenty of people. After some unfortunate setbacks, the Maze Runner trilogy concluded with The Death Cure, and a decent amount of fans still showed up to say their goodbyes. Meanwhile, Love, Simon found a decent-sized audience, and even Red Sparrow managed to overcome its controversial subject matter and long runtime to do okay. While The Post actually premiered in 2017, its wide release was the following year, and so it's worth mentioning this newspaper drama did quite well for Fox and Steven Spielberg. Unfortunately, not all the studio's output broke out. Despite the critical adoration, Widows and The Hate U Give did not seem to find a large audience willing to pay to see them. Shane Black's The Predator did not do much to re-energize that series, and Bad Times at the El Royale is destined to be a cult film people look back on and wonder why they missed it in theaters. Finally, The Darkest Minds became the first and last movie in that fledgling young adult franchise. Needless to say, it's going to be interesting to see where their new owners take them. Please treat 20th Century Fox well, Disney. And then we have Paramount, again in last place. They thankfully did much better in 2018 than in the previous few years, although there is still a little while to go before they climb back up to their earlier stature. Mission Impossible Fallout was an enormous hit for Paramount, becoming the highest grossing film in that series. If you love when Tom Cruise does those crazy stunts, I'm sure you're going to be very happy. A Quiet Place was another big success for them, showing the power of a well-crafted horror film with an attention-grabbing, high-concept premise, while Book Club was a nice little summer sleeper for the studio. And Bumblebee seems to be slowly but surely gaining an audience as it expands to more markets and plays well through January. The good news is that Paramount did not have to suffer through another monster trucks or downsizing disaster this year, but they nonetheless had their fair share of underperformers and flops. Instant Family will try to find a bigger audience overseas, but it's still a wild card. Nobody's Fool did disappointing numbers for a Tyler Perry film, but not to worry, Medea is in the next one. Sherlock Holmes put an end to the Romeo and Juliet cinematic universe. And I really wanted to see the Gnome Ranger. Action Point did rather pitiful numbers, and audiences just were not interested in the gruesomeness of Overlord. Annihilation is an interesting case, as Paramount probably made some money back off selling the foreign rights to Netflix. It did not gain many viewers domestically, but it will remain a mystery whether overseas markets would have been more interested in seeing it on the big screen. Overall, Paramount still has a ways to go before they're back on top, but 2018 represented a noble step up. It'll definitely be interesting to see how all the studios perform in the new year, and I'm very excited to find out. See you next time.